Hi, thanks for joining us today. I heard that you had a very busy morning because you attended an International Women's Day event. Maybe we can start with the question, what were you doing this morning? You can share with us.
Yeah, good morning, everyone, or good morning to most of you, and good evening to some of you. This morning tomorrow is International Women's Day, and this morning a very good organization called Walk the Talk had arranged a kind of a meeting session between senior executives and women in their career. And we had a walk around Marina Bay, and basically, helping each other out. I learned a lot, and we were discussing what they would like to achieve and how we can possibly help. It was a great morning and beautiful weather and very, very interesting.
Very glad that you can rush down to join us. But how important do you think it is for us to celebrate the International Women's Day?
Yeah, I actually, unfortunately, I actually agree with your statement, and I think it is actually quite important that we do that. And I say unfortunately because globally, survey after survey actually show that we have a gender gap. I mean, there's a gender inequality on pay and other things as well. And while I think in JJ we have actually worked consciously many years and decades to actively counter that, like with our good HR policies, fair hiring, and our pay practices and so on. But even in JJ, I am afraid that maybe we might actually also need International Women's Day in JJ, and it's kind of puzzling as to why, because I think if you take any manager, whether in JJ or not, I don't think we have a single one who wakes up in the morning, then we go to work, and they will say, today I'm going to discriminate against women. I really don't think we have anyone doing that. Mm-hmm. But still, at least globally, and perhaps even in JJ, it happens. And the reason is not ill intent. The reason behind, if it happens, is most likely unconscious bias. Mm-hmm. And as with any bias, because it's unconscious, we are not aware of it ourselves, and it's very hard to address it. And to me, therefore, I think we need International Women's Day just to once in a while get it up on our agenda for ourselves to reflect. Do we have unconscious bias against women, or do we not? And I think if we can make that unconscious bias in our work life conscious, we can deal with it. So therefore, I think, unfortunately, due to this, that the global surveys show we do have a gender gap, I think International Women's Day is important. And I'm very happy that we have this dialogue also today.
Yes. And we are going to hear from more of our senior women leaders later. Now, Per, if you remember, last year we had this exercise where we surveyed our people and we asked them to offer questions to our CEOs, what they would like to know about our CEOs and some of our other CxOs, including ourselves. So I'm going to ask some of the questions that have been raised. First up, we hear from the quiz just now that you're stepping into the 10th year of being in the executive board. Congratulations. Could you reflect on how these 10 years have been for you?
Yeah, I can't imagine it's true. I probably might have answered that wrong because it doesn't feel like 10 years. Actually, it's been going extremely fast, and so much have happened. But I'm lucky because, and I know not everyone is as lucky as me, but when I wake up on Monday morning, I still enjoy going to work and look forward to the work week. Right? It's so many good people to work with. We have a great company with excellent shareholders, and it's just a joy. So I think it's a privilege to work with JJ in my role, and it's been really truly good. But I can't believe that it's been 10 years in this role, and I joined the group in 2008, and I can't believe that it's so many years since I joined JJ.
Yes. And in your role, I can imagine that you wake up in the morning. Maybe not all mornings are great. Maybe some mornings are more challenging than others. So there is some kind of pressure in your role as group CEO. So I think one of the questions that we would really, really want to find out from you is, after an intense day or after an intense week, how do you manage to relax?
Yeah, I think that's not unique to me that needs to happen. I think all of us listening in here have that, right? We are all having a busy workday. To me, I think there are a few things. Exercising, I think, is quite important, and family, I think, helps a lot. And if we start with exercising, I think in my case, it's getting less and less intense. I used to be very extreme and be very hard on myself. But nowadays, it can be anything from walks, playing games, maybe with my son. I have a young son. My daughter is not, she's gone out from university. Oh, yeah. And I like just being outside. So jogging, I love skiing. Sometimes I go to the gym. I have lately picked up golf again, so I do that once in a while. Oh yeah, it's a great skiing picture there, but that jump is from my younger days actually, so
Okay.
I don't do it anymore. Yeah, so I think exercise is great, but then also family, honestly, because I try to get home for dinner every day. It definitely doesn't work out. But it really helps to get a different perspective and to relax in the evening. And I think maybe the last thing I'd like to mention is, and I've been blessed actually with a brain that can compartmentalize a lot. So even if we have difficult things and stressful things at work, I'm actually lucky enough to be able to switch that off fairly easy. It doesn't work every day and every night, but actually quite often I'm just able to switch it off for the night. I sleep very well. I'm very tired in the evening, and I sleep well, and then wake up the next morning, and then I get back to where I started with the business and compartmentalize it back into my brain again. So that's of course good if you have.
All right. It seems from the pictures that you are quite an active person. You do sports, skiing, golf, and all that. I do have a question that I want to ask you. Given your height and you are not short, is there an impediment to you doing sports?
I think it goes both ways, actually. I loved to play football, soccer, when I was younger. And I think I had a bigger passion for it than I was good. I mean, my legs were not easy to control and so on. I think maybe it was maybe I didn't have enough talent, but maybe that was also the length. I hung on to it simply because I enjoyed it so much, but I was definitely not good. I think so. But in other sports, I don't think so. I mean, like in volleyball, it may be even a benefit, right? I mean, skiing and whatever, golf is probably a benefit as well. You get a better swing radius. So no, I think it is pro and cons.
Okay, pros and cons. Do you have a football team that you support?
Not yet. So me and my daughter, we watched a little bit. Then I was kind of between Liverpool and Arsenal. But now my son is 8 years old. He's getting into the age where we start talking football, and he has not selected a team yet, and I have also not. But I think it's about time now to get passionate about that again.
All right, all right. Moving on to maybe slightly more serious questions. What's your view on success? How do you define success in life?
Oh, yeah, that's a tricky one. I mean, first of all, I mean, I think it is. It's a $1 million question, but I think being happy, I mean, is to me a big success, right? And that sounds very simple, but I think there are many considerations in that, right? I mean, first of all, sometimes you just have to dig in, right? And you have to work hard or study hard when you rather want to be happy and sit and watch TV, right? So it's the long term versus the short term. So that's one. And another complexity, I think, is that many of us, and definitely I take happiness from seeing other people being happy. First of all, of course, my family, and but also colleagues and so on, right? And then how do you make them happy is not the same as you always being happy, right?
Mhm.
And it's a quite complex question, what
Yeah.
happiness is and what success is. But overarching all of that, I think, is that we have to realize, and this is one of my favorite quotes, and that is, everyone has 24 hours a day. I mean, that applies to anyone, wherever you live in the world and whatever you do, whatever your position, we have 24 hours a day, which means that actually we cannot say, I don't have time. We say that sometimes, but it's the wrong statement. We do have time, but maybe we don't prioritize it. And if we say, I don't have time, it means it's so much, it's wrong, right? We blame it on someone else. But if we say, I did not prioritize it, we start thinking about whether we make the right priorities. And that's all we can do, right? So to reach happiness, we have to prioritize doing things. And while I am a big proponent of thinking long-term, studying hard to build up for the future, working hard and so on, we have also to remember that life is happening right now, right? So there is this saying, life is what is passing by when you're busy to planning it. And we have to make sure that we balance that correctly, right? So that we enjoy every day. And having a job that I enjoy going to, that's, I think, is a great success. And having a family, it's another one.
Okay, thank you. And I suppose in your thoughts on success, you are also thinking of how to bring more success to the group. So as group CEO, I think you are a leader of leaders. You deal with leaders with the different personalities, different likes and preferences. You deal with a very diverse boardroom, I can imagine. So how do you stay firm with your decision making, but at the same time be approachable and be forthcoming to your people?
Yeah. First of all, I'm very humbled because we have so many excellent people in our group, right, that I get to work with every day, and that includes the board and so on as well. So I'm very humbled about that. But I think it's not easy always, and that applies to all management, right? Because as a manager, we might have the inclination that we want to please, but it's not easy, right? Because as a manager, we cannot always please people and make decisions that everybody likes. So what I think we are very good at in JJ, and I try to live that as well, is that when we make decisions, they are based on analysis of all the facts, so that we are fact-based in our decision making. And that also applies. I mean, one fact is also that we're actually humans with our own needs and wants, and we also need to. It's not just dollars and cents and decimals and so on. It is also that we're humans. And when we have made those decisions that are fact-based, then we have to work hard to communicate those decisions. And maybe it will not always be liked, but if we do it in that way, it's almost always respected. And so I think that's very good. And then the other thing when we make decisions, I think it's also important to remember that we have biases. And we have the conscious bias and the unconscious bias, right? And the conscious bias is not a big problem, because if we know that we're favoring certain types of people, like extroverts versus introverts or whatever, we can deal with it, right? But it's the same as your question on the International Women's Day. It's the unconscious bias that we have to take out of the decision-making process. And that is a challenge, but by being fact-based and really trying to look at the source data and the facts and questioning the facts, I think then the decision-making becomes better.
Okay. All right, thanks. As you were conversing with me, I was taking a glance at the chat that we have. There are several comments, mostly about Liverpool, I think, at this point. Yeah. But if you do have a question for our group CEO, Per, feel free to put in a chat, and if we have time, we can go to these questions. But moving on, I'd like to touch a little bit about the group's development. And you have been at the helm of several developments in recent months. In 6 months, we had 3 acquisitions done last year, and you have been busy with that. Would that be part of the advance and build strategy? And how would you sum up the success of this strategy?
Thank you. I like that question because that one I knew about in advance. It's a little bit easier to prepare when you know about the question. So thank you for that question.
Okay.
Let me take over and share the screen. I actually did
Let's go ahead.
did make a presentation about that. I hope you can see that, right? So you're right.
Yeah.
And it's actually, we have to go back maybe even a little bit longer. So around 5 years ago, for those of you who were with us then, you know that we had to divest our stake in MHE DMAG, which reduced about a third of size of our group. We had COVID-19 just coming in, and the group looked very different from what it had done before. So we embarked then on a strategy. What do we do now? We totally different situation, and what do we do about it? And we called that strategy Advance and Build. And many of you here were engaged in developing that. And it was a fairly straightforward strategy on a group level. We wanted to grow back because we had now reduced the size so much. And we had focused on organic growth to serve our customers better, find new products, and so on. But we also said we wanted to do M&A. And we also had a quite large war chest because we had gotten a quite a good amount of money for MHE DMAG when we divested it. And then each BU built their own strategy, right? And did that. So that's what we did. And we did a lot of actions, but it took quite long to get going. And now, if you see here, I circled that, we're actually on the last year of our strategy. So 2025 is the last year of the strategy. So it's a good timing to take stock. One of the first things that happened was that we bought back a share of what we had divested because Konecranes did not want to keep everything, and we bought that back very happily. We added on EMS, a Sydney-based company to complement MHE. And last year, SafeTech became part of our group. And all of this, and even some other minor acquisition, like a small car parking company and so on, has now formed the MHE activity in technology. So MHE is now about half the size it was when we divested it. So $130 million turnover and 540 people as we're speaking, and a very strong part of our group. So that's one M&A thing that we did fairly recently. More recently than that, we've added 2 new business units to our group. And the first one was actually a company that was previously part of the family enterprise, but outside of Gibson & Jessen, GMA. And this came on board 1st of July here as part of JJ Group. And GMA is, as you see, a quite sizable company with close to 500 people. And it's quite a game changer and a very aspirational role model for us in JJ in many ways. First of all, it's actually global, with mines also in the United States and Australia, processing plants in many areas, including Middle East, the US, and Australia, and so on. So it's a global footprint, and it's a full value add. So it goes from mining it out of the ground, you see the dump trucks up there and so on, right, to processing plants who are processing this, removing the unwanted minerals that we don't want leaving the garnet, to distribution, marketing and sales, and delivering it to our customer after it's been processed, and even recycling it back. So it's a very good, and it's a role model aspirational for us in the group, and a very big, important contribution to our group. And just a few months after this came on board, we made a deal with our long-term friends in Mongolia called MSM. So Lawrence Melchers and David, that you see here on the photo, were the previous owners, and they sold most of their shares to us. They are still shareholders, and Mark Gabel, seen on this picture, is the CEO of the group. And MSM is a country group. It's focused on Mongolia and have 3 main divisions. So one is the automobile division. You see the showroom up on the top right, importing, distributing Mercedes since many years, Ford, Stellantis, and also BYD in Mongolia. It's also a beverage group representing most of the international brands into Mongolia, both wines, but spirits, and also now cooperating with Jebsen Wines and introducing that into the group. And then it's an industrial group. So Mongolia is not a very industrialized country, but we're supporting the development of the industry in the country. And it has one very large mine called Oyu Tolgoi, which is Rio Tinto, that we are also a very large supporter of. So all these acquisitions have rebuilt our group and actually dramatically changed how we look. But we also last year actually discontinued 2 businesses. And one is in 2014, we acquired a minority stake in a company in Norway. It's an electronics company doing offshore specific control systems. And last year, we divested our shares back to the man you see on the picture here, to Helge, and he's now running that, and we are no longer in the offshore business. So we kept this, and we also kept Cables International when we divested the offshore business in 2016. But now this one is also no longer with the group. And the other one is our colleagues in technology in Thailand, the scientific business, which we handed over to Melchers Group in Thailand. And all people transferred over, and we have spoken to them. They are actually very happy. They didn't even need to leave the building. Actually, Melchers are in the same building as we are in Sorachai in Bangkok. So it was a very easy transition. And they are happy there. And it's kind of a fun fact, because you see, we divested this to Melchers, which I think is it's the same family that Lawrence Melchers, that were one of the shareholders of MSM. And on the same day that we actually closed the deal of acquiring the MSM in Mongolia, we actually handed this business over to some relatives of him in Thailand. So that's a lot what has happened in the group during the last years, and it's been quite dramatic.
Yes, thanks, Per. Good to hear about all these developments. But with all this that have come our way, what organizational changes can you share that we can expect?
Yeah, thank you. That's also a question that I prepared for. So I like these questions. Yeah, so the organization now has added 2 business units to us. And by the way, we don't call them regional business units. We have this term RBU that we used to use, but it was always a little bit of a conundrum, what is regional and so on, and who's in charge of the other regions and so on. So we have dropped the term R, and we are just calling ourselves business units now. And we have all our existing business units, but we have also added 2 new business units, which is then the Industrial Garnet and the Mobility, Industry and Beverage, MSM, to the group. And the management team for all of this is what we call the CxO team, which are the BU heads, and Victor as our CFO, and Olivia, our CHRO. And we are working together to on the group level. But as you know, each BU has a very large independence. And that's also why the team members here are called CEOs, because they run the BU on a very long leash, so to say. It's up to the BU to run their own business. And in addition to the CxOs you see here, it's of course me and Heinrich that are working here. And I double up, and I'm also the CEO of the technology business as well. So that's how we manage the group. I just thought it could also be interesting to reflect on how this have changed us in the last years. So in 2020, when we made the Advance and Build strategy, we had shrunk down from previously being close to $1 billion down to just being slightly over $600 million in sales. And we had 5 BUs, as you see here. In 2023, and I take 2023 because that's before the main acquisitions came in, like SafeTech and MSM and so on, right? We had mainly through organic means grown up to well over 800. And that's a quick growth, actually. And you see the growth that, for example, Cables, JJ Lurgy, and Technology did, right? It was quite a dramatic growth during those years. And that I would partly attribute to the BU strategies that we had. And now we look into 2025, and you can see a continued dramatic growth, not only through the two new BUs, which is MSM and GMA that you see on top, but actually all other BUs have also grown, continued their organic growth to reach that. Of course, here in the tech numbers, you then have safe tech included also, so that's not entirely organic. So that's really amazing, and we are very, very happy with this development. But it has also changed where we do business. So if we look at where are your colleagues, and many of you are dialing in today, in which country are we based now? And it's interesting to see that Malaysia is the country where we have most colleagues, but it's not by a lot, actually. You can guess what the second country is, maybe. It is Indonesia, so not far after. And interestingly, the third country here is a country where we had no colleagues 8 months ago, and that's Mongolia. So we are now over 700 colleagues in Mongolia, and I can be quite certain that it's not many of you who are not in Mongolia who have been to Mongolia. It's not a country that we usually travel to. And then the other countries follow. And if you look at the countries, we have our traditional countries, but also now new countries. Australia with 370 people, United States, close to 200 or 166, and Middle East, which is quite interesting that we're also there. And you see on top, you see other, and that are countries like China, Myanmar, but also countries like Brazil, Germany, and India. So we have really changed the map. If we go back to when I joined the group in 2008, Malaysia was a third of all our headcount. We were about 3,000 people, and a third was in Malaysia. If we took Thailand and Malaysia together in 2008, it was half. So Malaysia, Thailand together was half of our colleagues in the group. So we have really changed the footprint in these, 17 years. And today we're around 4,400 colleagues. That, I hope, answers your question, Darren.
Yes, it does. Thank you for your insights. But it also means that Capgemini Jackson is somewhat no longer just about Southeast Asia. How do we position ourselves in the next 5 years? And this is a loaded question, so you please feel free to take your time answering that question.
Yeah, that's the last question you actually shared with me before, so I actually have prepared for that one also. So going forward, this has, of course, then, as you saw on the employee slide, changed our group, right? And the last strategy, Advance and Build, is on its last year, and I would also say that it has played out its usefulness. Actually, it's not. There are things in there that are still guiding us, but I mean, we are a different group now. The situation is very different. So we are now, as we speak, developing our new strategy. So what will be our direction for the next years going forward? And it's a 5-year strategy, and we are doing it on the group level, of course, but each BU are also either developing completely new strategies, or if they already have an up-to-date strategy, they are just tweaking it and fitting it into our group strategy. So it's very different in each BU how much work there is. And for the first time, also, each group function is also developing their strategy. Of course, the group functions only have one purpose, right? That's to support the business, to the BUs to do the business, right? So, of course, the group functions strategy is very connected to the BU strategies. How can they support the BUs better? And our target is to have this completely finalized in the middle of the year. And we are a different group now. We mentioned that we are in more countries. So that's one clear difference. Even though I must say this doesn't apply to everyone. This is just a few of our BUs. It's, as we mentioned, it's GMA, and it's also JD Lurgy, who are having a global presence. We are also not anymore just industrial. So you see here actually a slide from MSM. Starting from the right, you see a Mercedes G-Class, and we're also doing Fords and BYDs and other cars, as I said. And then in the middle here, you see the beverage. In the middle photo is a photo from Sauer, one of our own shops in Ulaanbaatar. But most of what we're selling is not going through our own shops. It's going either on-prem directly to bars and restaurants, or also online and in other ways. So this is more than industrial. Also in MSM, we do have an industrial division, but that one is more aligned to what we do in other parts of JJ, so that's not shown here. And as you might recall, our purpose statement is we enable sustainable industrial development in ASEAN and beyond. I would say this still fits our group, because ASEAN and beyond is, yes, that's true. Maybe we have much more beyond that what we could imagine. And we also now have some business, especially in MSM, that is not industrial development, but the rest is. So I would say that this is still quite, at least not totally wrong. But one thing that is very different is, while we are now one family, GMA, MSM, SafeTech, EMS, and so on, is now part of our family as well. It doesn't mean that we are a homogeneous, self-playing piano. I would say we have just started on the integration journey. So integration, to make sure that we work as one company. And that's not only to say that now the new company shall work exactly like we do or adapt everything that we do. It is to learn from each other and become a new set of values and families that work together. And that applies to how we do business. It applies to our systems. IT systems, of course, is a big part of that, and culture. And we are now not so ASEAN focused only. We are a global group, so the culture part is also has many more dimensions to it. So integration is one of our top focus at the moment, to make sure that we all are one JJ and work efficiently together. It doesn't mean we're changing the culture in the companies that have come on board, but it means that we have to have a culture that works well together, and that our systems and so on work together. That's a big focus. And I sometimes get the question, what about M&A? And in Advance and Build, M&A was a major focus. We had a special function here at Group Headquarters that were just focused on M&A. And we did M&A not only as a step out, like MSM and GMA were like new BUs we added, but also within the businesses. And we did some in technology, we looked at a lot in packaging and so on, right? So we did both step out and add on. But going forward, this picture will be different, and this is now shrinking dramatically. So you see the picture is now much smaller, and it's not gone. The picture is still there. So in the new strategy, even though, of course, we haven't really finalized it yet, but I can see the direction. In the new strategy, M&A will have much less attention. We will talk less about it. We will not allocate so much new funds to it, and so on. But it's not gone. And in some specific BUs, we will strengthen our portfolio or our footprint by specific add-ons. So it's not gone. It's just we will not look at major M&As in the new strategy. So in Advance and Build, you saw that from 2020 to 2023 and also to 2025, we did grow organically, which means we grew within our BUs and so on, with adding new products and so on. So we have had quite a lot of success in that. And just a few examples, very high, what we call NBD focus in ingredients, that is now starting to make also ingredient sales to pick up. We have a huge part of JJ Lab turnover that is completely new. It's a renewable business, the solar mainly. So it's solar cables, it's solar panels, it's inverters, and so on, which is a major part of the turnover in JJ Lab now. MEG in itself was an acquisition back, but we acquired the car parks and the IPD business. Cranes, we did not acquire, but we are now doing cranes again in MHE. So that's an organic add-on. We have added new markets in JJ Lurgi. That's also an organic growth. We've started companies in Brazil, in Germany, and in India, and we're supporting that from our Malaysia team. In Cables International, we used to only be offshore and marine, and are now also onshore, delivering, for example, things to data centers and so on here in the region. And another example is the ag irrigation in turf and irrigation. There are many more, and I'm really sorry for those I left out here. This is not an exhaustive list, and by making a list, you risk losing out on some. So really good. Going forward, this will be even larger focus in the new strategy. So growth has to continue, but it has to come from new initiatives and so on that we do in the business to a largest extent. So in the new strategy, which we don't have a name for, by the way, feel free to give tips on the name for the new strategy. We had advance and build in the previous strategy. The new strategy will have a very large focus on organic growth. How can we serve our customers better? How can we pay more attention to them? What more can we serve a certain customer? And how can we organically maybe add on new products and so on into the business? That's what we are now trying to focus a lot on in the strategic development. And we have to also discuss the world order that we are seeing right now. So it feels maybe pretty dramatic to open up your news channel in the morning and see what has happened over the night. But I would say an unpredictable environment is normal. We had a military coup in Myanmar. We've had coups in Thailand. We've had big disruption with COVID. We've had so many things happening. We've had tsunamis. We've had, financial crisis. That is the world. So if we are having a new government in one of the most powerful nations in the world, yes, it will impact us for sure. But it's just normal. We just navigate it. There will be opportunities created in this. There will be businesses that maybe are less valuable, and we just have to stay nimble be agile. Maybe not too quick also to make decisions, but we need to make decisions. We need to adapt to a new world order whenever it changes. And most importantly, we need to be entrepreneurial. There will be opportunities. All change brings opportunities. We kind of often focus on the business we're losing, but that's a wrong focus. Let's focus on what new opportunities does this open up, and where can we do more? Which customers can we serve better, and so on. And to do this, we have this growth mindset that we are always trying to focus on. To do this, we need people. We need you. So we're now 4,400 people. Every person matters. And I see it as a great symbiosis between me as an employee and me as leading the company, right? We want to develop as employees. We want our rice bowl filled. We want a career progression. We want to be stimulated as employees. And that's exactly what the company needs as well. The company needs that we as employees develop, that we as employees step up, and so on. And this doesn't happen easily. It takes a lot of communication, feedback, discussions, and of course our HR teams plays a big role in this, but every manager is an HR manager, and every employee has a responsibility for their own development. And I think we're doing so much great things. I collected a few photos. The first one was Singapore. This one, I guess you can imagine, is from Ulaanbaatar in our beautiful showroom there. And here we see a picture from Shanghai, I believe it is, from a JD Lurgi team. This one is from Australia, and here we have Indonesia. This looks like Malaysia, Vietnam. You see the flag tells it. This is in Philippines, must be the entrance in Philippines. Here we have India, Germany, and Brazil, JD Lurgi, Thailand, many more. We have to keep not only social activities going, but we also now need to make sure our competence develops. We're staying tuned to all the technological advances that happen. Please use ChatGPT, learn how to use AI, learn how to use our IT tool better, stay on top of things, because the world is moving on, and we have to ourselves to own that we develop with it. So I hope that answered your question.
Yes. Yes, thanks. That was my last question.